They assumed humans were weak, until war-hardened soldiers struck back. Part 1. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched across the entire top floor of the station. It was so large that sound took time to travel from one end to the other. The walls were made of transparent crystal, showing the endless darkness of space beyond. Stars hung in the black like diamonds on black cloth. Commander Hayes stood in the back of the hall, away from the main gathering of aliens. His uniform was dark blue with gold markings along the shoulders. He had worn this uniform for 20 years. In that time, he had seen things that would break most beings. War did that to a person. It took away the soft edges and replaced them with sharp corners. The council members sat at a long table that rose above everything else. They were beings of different shapes and sizes. Some had 4 arms. Some had no arms at all. One looked like a creature made of floating crystals. Another was so tall it had to lower its head to fit in the room. These were the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. They had technology that could destroy planets. They had ships that could travel faster than light itself. They had ruled space for millions of years. They believed nothing could touch them. They believed they knew everything about power and strength. "The species from thee is requesting representation again," said one of the council members. His skin was green and smooth like glass. His voice held no respect. "They seem to believe they are ready for a full seat." A wave of low sounds moved through the council. It might have been laughter, could not tell for sure. "They barely have working space travel," said another council member. Her name was, and she came from a race that could live without air. "They destroy their own world. They cannot even control their own kind. How could they possibly contribute anything to us?" Did not move. He did not change his face. He had learned long ago that showing emotion was a mistake in places like this. "Perhaps we could use them for labor," suggested a third voice. "Their physical strength is decent for a primitive species. They could work in the mining colonies. That would be a good use for them." The other council members seemed to think this was a good idea. They nodded their heads or made their own sounds of agreement. Felt his jaw tighten. He was a trained soldier. He knew how to control his body. He pushed the anger down deep and locked it away. Anger was useful sometimes, but not now. Now was the time to watch and listen. Council leader spoke last. Was ancient. His body was made of crystal that had grown for 10,000 years. His voice was slow and thoughtful, like rocks grinding together in the earth. "The humans have only been in space for 50 years, said. "It is true they are new. It is true they are young, but they come from a world called Earth. This world is dangerous. Their sun burns hot. Their planet shakes and breaks itself open. Storms kill entire cities. Creatures hunt them. Disease takes them. Every single day a human must survive against these things. They do not have the safety we enjoy." The council members listened too, but could see they did not really care. "Such hardship does not create strength," said. "It only creates desperation. There is a difference." "Is there?" asked. He turned his crystal head slowly toward. His eyes were like deep pools of light. "Come here, human, tell us about your world." Pushed himself off from the wall and walked toward the council table. Every step was firm and steady. He had walked into dangerous rooms before. He had walked into rooms where men wanted to kill him. He had come out alive every time. He stopped at the right distance and waited. "Your name?" asked. "Commander Hayes," he said. His voice was calm and clear. "From the United States Military, Earth." "Commander," said, "is it true that humans kill each other?" "Yes," said, "we have wars. We fight among ourselves." "And you survive these wars?" asked. There was something like amusement in her voice. "We do," said. "We learn, we adapt. We find new ways to survive." Made a sound like wind through stones. "The humans have learned to survive against themselves," he said. "This is something we cannot teach, something that cannot be given, something that must be earned through living." Before anyone could respond, an alarm cut through the air. It was loud and sharp. Every head in the council chamber turned toward the wall screens. They showed real-time information from across 1,000 star systems. A deep red color spread across one section of the galaxy. It was growing. It was spreading like blood in water. "The Vex Collective has struck again," said a council secretary, his voice shaking. "They have attacked the colony at 9. The defense fleet is not responding. There are no survivors among the civilian population. Thousands are dead." The council members stood up. Their voices rose and fell in sharp, angry sounds. "Send the fleet," commanded. "Send everything we have. Destroy these creatures." "Yes," agreed the other council members. "Send our best ships. Send our strongest forces. This will be the last time the Vex Collective threatens us." Watched them. He saw the anger, yes, but he also saw something else. He saw confidence that was not based on knowledge. He saw power that had never been truly tested. He saw beings who had lived so long without real danger that they had forgotten what it meant to be afraid. He knew what would happen next. He had seen it before in his own species. When you had power and did not use it against real enemies, you became weak. You became soft. You became a danger to yourself. Turned and walked back to his place in the corner of the hall. Another human soldier stood near one of the windows. She was watching the spreading red on the screens. She did not look away as joined her. "They are going to lose," she said quietly. "Yes," said "they will." "And then they will remember we exist," said. "Maybe," said, "if we are lucky." But luck was something had learned not to trust. He trusted training, preparation, and the will to survive. Those things had kept him alive. Those things would keep humanity alive too. The alarm continued to wail. The council rushed around like frightened creatures, but stood still, watching the stars and waiting for what would come next. They assumed humans were weak, until war-hardened soldiers struck back. Part 2. The battle near 9 lasted only 8 hours. It took 2 weeks for the remains of the council fleet to limp back to the station. Ships were broken. Many did not come back at all. Of the 10,000 soldiers sent, fewer than 3,000 survived. Commander watched the damaged ships arrive from the observation deck. Each one carried wounded soldiers and broken dreams. He had seen this before. He knew what defeat looked like. He knew what it did to the mind and the spirit of soldiers. The council hall was silent when the survivors gave their report. The fleet commander, a being named from the race, stood before them with empty eyes. His skin had lost its color. His voice was flat and broken. "The Vex came at us in waves," said. "We responded with our full force. Our weapons should have destroyed them easily, but they fought in a way we did not expect. They used the asteroid field as cover. They came from directions we thought were impossible. They split our fleet into smaller groups. Then they destroyed each group one by one." "How did primitives manage this?" asked. There was less power in his voice now. Defeat changed things. "They are not primitive," said. "They are different. They do not fight like we fight. They do not follow the standard ways of war. They fight like they have nothing to lose because perhaps they do not." Stepped forward from the back of the room. "Permission to speak," he said. The council members looked at him. Some seemed confused, as if they had forgotten he existed. "Speak," said. "The Vex have experience fighting across many systems," said. "They have learned by doing. They have lost ships and learned from those losses. Your fleet has not fought a real enemy in 10,000 years. You have forgotten what war costs. You have forgotten how to adapt." Stood up, his face turned dark red with anger. "Are you suggesting that we are weak?" he demanded. "I am saying that experience creates strength," replied. His voice remained calm. "My species has fought against itself for thousands of years. We have learned through failure. We have learned by losing and trying again. The Vex have learned the same way. You have not." "The humans are right," said quietly. "I have studied the battle records. The Vex used coordination that showed previous experience. They used tactics that were designed to counter exactly the kind of fleet we sent. They were prepared. We were not. Silence filled the room. It was a heavy silence full of shame and anger. "What do you propose?" asked, his crystal eyes fixed on. Did not hesitate. He had been waiting for this moment. He had known it would come. "Give me 100 of your best soldiers," he said. "Give me access to all information about the Vex. Give me command of my own fleet. We will end this threat." The council members made sounds of shock and disbelief. "You cannot be serious," said, 100 soldiers against an enemy that destroyed our fleet of 10,000. "Not 100 against 10,000, said, 100 who know how to actually fight. 100 who understand that war is about more than technology. 100 who will not break when things get difficult." "This is insane," said, but raised one crystal hand. "Let the human try," he said. "We have already lost much. What is the cost of trying?" The vote was close, but it passed. The council would give his chance. Some members voted yes because they respected what he said. Others voted yes because they had nothing left to lose. Returned to the human quarters and selected his team. He chose Captain Lisa, a strategic mind who had studied warfare her entire life. He chose Sergeant Jackson, the toughest soldier ever trained by Earth's military. He chose Lieutenant and 83 others. Every single one had combat experience. Every single one understood that the only way out was forward. For 3 weeks they trained, taught them everything he knew about the Vex. He taught them how to read their patterns, how to predict their movements, how to use the environment against them. He taught them Earth military history. He showed them how small forces had defeated larger ones through intelligence and courage. "The Vex are strong," told his soldiers one night, "but they follow patterns. They repeat the same tactics. We will find those patterns, we will learn them, and we will use that knowledge to destroy them." Lisa studied the battle records and made maps. She found the locations where the Vex gathered most often. She found the supply lines they used. She found the weaknesses that the council had missed. "Here," she pointed to one star system. "They are rebuilding here. This outpost is lightly defended. This is where we strike first." Jackson checked weapons and equipment. He made sure every soldier was in perfect condition. He pushed them hard in training because he knew that in real combat, they would need to be stronger than they had ever been before. The night before their first operation, called his team together. "Tomorrow we show them what humans can do," he said. "Not with the best technology, not with the largest fleet, but with something the council has forgotten about: courage, determination, the will to fight and win no matter what. We fight not for glory, we fight because we have to. We fight because people are depending on us. We fight because humans do not give up." The soldiers looked at their commander. They saw a man who had lived through real war. They saw a man who understood the cost of combat. They saw a man who would lead them into the darkness and bring them back out alive. "For Earth," said, raising her fist. "For Earth," echoed the other soldiers. Nodded, he did not smile. This was not the time for happiness. This was the time for focus and concentration. The next morning they attacked. Their ships were smaller and faster than the Vex vessels. They moved like predators hunting prey. They used tactics the Vex had never seen before. They used coordination that came from training and trust. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the Vex outpost was destroyed. No survivors remained. The Council's forces had failed. The humans had succeeded. News of the victory spread through the galaxy like lightning through a storm. The species that had dismissed humans began to pay attention. The Galactic Council began to understand that they had made a mistake, but did not celebrate. He prepared for the next mission. He knew this was only the beginning. Real war was still to come, and he would be ready. They assumed humans were weak until war-hardened soldiers struck back. Part 3. The victory at the first outpost was only the beginning. The Galactic Council realized that the humans were serious. They began to accept leadership in military matters. What started as a small strike team became a growing force. More human soldiers arrived from Earth. They brought with them the experience of thousands of years of conflict. Over the next 6 months, Team attacked 5 more Vex installations across different star systems. Each attack was planned with care. Each attack succeeded. The pattern was always the same. The humans would study the target for weeks. They would find the weakness. They would strike fast and hard. Then they would disappear before any counterattack could form. The Vex Collective began to realize they were facing something different. They began to change their tactics. But every time they changed, the humans adapted faster, taught his soldiers to think like the enemy. He taught them to predict what the Vex would do next. He taught them that the mind was a more powerful weapon than any gun. One day, a young alien named requested to join's team. Was from a reptilian species called the. He was tall and strong, with scales that reflected light like mirrors. When he first arrived, many of soldiers were uncomfortable. They had only fought alongside other humans before. "Why should we trust a?" asked one soldier. Looked at the young alien. He saw intelligence in his eyes. He saw the desire to fight. He saw courage. "We fight because we believe in something," said. "We fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves. If believes in this, then he is one of us." Proved himself in the next 3 missions. He was brave. He was skilled. He followed orders without question. By the end, no one questioned his presence in the team anymore. He had earned his place through action. This single act began to change how other alien species viewed humans. If humans could work with someone different and trust them completely, then humans were not the primitives many had believed. Humans were capable of something deeper. They were capable of seeing past appearance and culture to find common ground. The Galactic Council began to offer more support. They provided better ships. They provided intelligence about Vex movements. They began to understand that humanity's military strategy was superior to their own. Slowly, other species soldiers began training alongside Team. They wanted to learn how humans fought. They wanted to understand this new way of war. By month 6, had a combined force of 300 soldiers, 100 human, the rest from various species across the galaxy. They were called the Galactic Defense Force, and they were becoming legendary. Lisa developed a plan that shocked everyone. She studied maps and data until her mind was as sharp as a blade. Then she came to with an idea. "The Vex have a central command," she said, "a place where all their leaders meet. It is on a planet called Vex Prime. It is their strongest position, but it is also their most important position. If we can destroy this central command, the Vex Collective will break apart. They will no longer be able to coordinate their attacks." Looked at the maps. The target was in the heart of Vex space, surrounded by defenses. "It cannot be done," said one of the council representatives. "We have already calculated this. The casualties would be unacceptable." "Using your methods, yes," said Lisa. "But we will not use your methods. We will use a strategy that humans have used for thousands of years. We will send a small team deep into enemy territory. This team will disable the central communication network. Without communication, the Vex forces will be helpless. Then the main fleet attacks and finishes them." Listen to the plan carefully. It was dangerous. It was bold. It might not work. But if it did work, it would end the war. "I need volunteers," said to his team. "This mission has a high chance of failure. Soldiers might not come back. Anyone who does not want to go, step back now." No one stepped back. Pointed to. "Will lead the infiltration team," he said. "She is the best soldier I have ever known. If anyone can do this, it is her." Nodded. She did not hesitate. She did not show fear. This was what she was trained for. This was what she was born to do. "I need 15 soldiers," said, "the best we have." Selected them carefully. Each one was strong and skilled. Each one had proven themselves in previous missions. Each one knew that this might be their last mission. They trained for 2 weeks. They studied the geography of Vex Prime. They learned the patrol patterns of the guards. They practiced moving through darkness and silence. They prepared mentally for what was coming. The night before the mission, called to his quarters, they sat alone looking out at the stars. "This is the hardest mission I am giving you," said. "I know," said. "It will be dark," said. "It will be loud with gunfire. It will be terrifying. You will be surrounded by enemies." "I know," said again. "I need you to come back," said. His voice was quiet but strong. "I need you to come back alive." Looked at her commander. She saw a man who had lost soldiers before. She saw a man who understood the cost of war. "I will come back," she said. "I promise." The mission began the next morning, watched from the command ship as team descended toward Vex Prime. The infiltration team moved like ghosts through the darkness. They used training and courage. They used silence and speed. They moved forward into the unknown. The main fleet moved into position above the planet. They waited for the signal. They waited for the moment when would disable the communications network, stood on the command deck and watched. He watched the man who had everything to lose and nothing to fall back on. He watched and waited and hoped. The infiltration team was inside the planet now. They were in the tunnels beneath Vex Prime. They were getting closer to the target. Everything depended on what happened next. They assumed humans were weak until war-hardened soldiers struck back. Part 4. The tunnels beneath Vex Prime were cold and dark, and her team moved through them like shadows. Their lights were off. They used thermal imaging to see where the enemy was. Every step was careful. Every movement was planned. They had been underground for 6 hours. They were getting close to the communication hub, but something had changed. Could feel it. The patrol patterns were different. More guards were moving through the tunnels. Someone had increased security. Then her team ran directly into a Vex patrol. "Contact!" shouted one of the soldiers. The tunnel filled with gunfire. Light filled the darkness. The sound was deafening. His team returned fire. They were trained for this. They had practiced close combat 1,000 times. The Vex were strong and fast, but they were not coordinated. His team moved like a single creature. They covered each other. They moved forward and pushed the enemy back. But then Private Green was hit. His leg exploded with pain. His blood covered the tunnel floor. He fell. Had a choice to make. They could leave and continue the mission. They could move forward and complete the task. They could save the thousands of lives that depended on disabling the communications hub. Or they could save. Had taught her many things. He had taught her how to fight. He had taught her how to survive. But he had also taught her something more important. He had taught her that soldiers were not just weapons. Soldiers were family, and you do not abandon family. "We hold here," commanded. "No one leaves anyone behind." The rest of the team took defensive positions around. They created a wall of fire. They kept the Vex at a distance. One of the other soldiers, Private Stephen Cross, moved to and used medical supplies to stop the bleeding. "I will slow you down," said, his voice tight with pain. "No," said, "you will not slow us down. We will move as one, all of us or none of us." The Vex sent more soldiers. They sent waves of them. The tunnel became a place of death. Bullets flew back and forth. Soldiers on both sides fell, but the team held their position. Then the rest of the team made a breakthrough. They pushed the remaining Vex forces back enough to create a path forward, made a decision. 5 soldiers would stay behind and hold the line. The rest would continue to the communications hub. "Stephen stays with," said, "and you stay with them. Cover their retreat when we give the signal. The rest of us move forward." The soldiers obeyed without question. In real combat, you did not have time to discuss. You had time only to act. Led the remaining soldiers forward. Behind them they could still hear gunfire. They could still hear the sounds of fighting. They did not stop. They could not stop. The communications hub was massive. It filled an entire chamber deep underground. Cables ran through the walls like veins. Systems blinked with power and information. This was the heart of the Vex Collective. This was where all their commands came from. Lisa had created something before the mission. She had created a device that would destroy the entire network. It looked simple, but it was incredibly powerful. Took the device from her pack. "Plant it," she said to one of her soldiers. The soldier moved to the center of the hub and placed the device. He connected it to the power source. He activated the timer. They had 5 minutes before it would go off. "Go," shouted, "move now." They ran back through the tunnels. Behind them, they could hear Vex forces approaching. The guards had figured out where they were. They were coming to stop them. And her team burst into the chamber where their other soldiers were still fighting. The defense line was breaking. The Vex were pushing forward. "Charge," shouted. And her soldiers did. They moved forward like a force of nature. They pushed through the Vex soldiers. They created a path. They grabbed Steven and the others. The chamber shook. In the distance far below, the communications device exploded. The entire network went dark. The planet shook. The Vex forces became confused and disorganized. Without communication from their leaders, they did not know what to do. His team ran toward the exit. Behind them, tunnels collapsed. Dust filled the air. The ground beneath their feet moved and shifted. They emerged into the open air just as the first explosions lit up the sky. Above them, his fleet moved into position. He had been waiting for the signal. The communications network was down. Now it was time for the main attack. The fleet opened fire. Ships fell from the sky. Vex defenses, without coordination from the central command, were helpless. They fell one after another. Had ordered a personal team to go down and provide extraction fire for his team. He led that team himself. He knew was coming. He knew she was coming because he had faith in her. He had never doubted. The extraction point was a clearing near the ruins of a Vex base. His team was running toward it. His team was providing covering fire. Bullets filled the air. The ground shook from explosions. Was helping move. The wounded soldier was heavy, but she did not slow down. Around her, her team fought off the remaining Vex forces. They were so close to the extraction point, so close to escaping. Saw first. He saw her struggling with. He did not hesitate. He moved toward her and took from her arms. "I have him," said. "Move to the ships." Continued to fire her weapon, providing covering fire as carried. They were almost there. The ships were so close. A Vex guard appeared directly in front of them. Did not stop. He charged forward like a man possessed. He crashed into the Vex guard and brought him down. He did not get back up. They reached the ships. Was the last to board. She looked back at the planet below. She had succeeded. Her team had succeeded. They had done the impossible. The ships rose into the air and broke through the atmosphere. Behind them, Vex Prime was falling into chaos. Without leadership, without communication, the Vex Collective was breaking apart. Set down gently in the medical bay. The doctors rushed toward him. Was hurt badly, but he would live. He would survive because had refused to leave him behind. Found on the observation deck. They stood together looking down at Vex Prime. "You came," she said. "I told you I would," said. "I told you I would always come back for you." "You did more than that," said. "You came forward instead of waiting." Did not respond. He did not need to. They had been soldiers together. They had survived together. That was enough. The battle of Vex Prime was over. The Vex Collective was broken. The humans had won. They assumed humans were weak until war-hardened soldiers struck back. Part 5. The Galactic Council met in emergency session 2 days after the fall of Vex Prime. The news had spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. The humans, the species that many had believed were primitive, had accomplished what no other force could accomplish. They had defeated the Vex Collective. stood before the council once more. But this time, everything was different. The council members did not look down at him. They looked at him with respect. They looked at him with fear. They looked at him with the understanding that they had made a terrible mistake when they had doubted humanity. "The Vex Collective is broken," said. His voice was steady. "Their main command structure is destroyed. Their leadership is dead or scattered. Their forces are disorganized. Within a few weeks they will retreat to the edge of known space. They will no longer be a threat." Rose from his seat, the old crystal being looked at with eyes that had seen thousands of years of history. "You have done what we could not do," said. "You have brought peace to the galaxy. The Galactic Council is in debt to humanity." "We do not want debt," said. "We want respect. We want to be treated as equals." The council members looked at each other. Some seemed uncomfortable. Others seemed to understand that was right. Stood up. The green-skinned council member who had once spoken with such contempt now stood with his head lowered. "I was wrong about humans," he said. "I believed strength came only from technology and age. I believed that primitive meant weak. I was wrong. Strength comes from courage. Strength comes from the will to survive. Strength comes from caring for others even when it costs you everything. Humans have these things. I have seen it with my own eyes." The vote came quickly. The council voted unanimously to grant humanity full membership, not as a servant species, not as a labor force, but as equals, as warriors, as protectors. Was offered the position of Supreme Military Commander of the Galactic Defense Force. He was offered power beyond what he had ever imagined. He accepted, but only on his terms. "I accept," he said, "but I will keep humanity's military independent. We will work with the Council, but we will make our own decisions. We will not be controlled." "Agreed," said. "You have earned that right through victory." Left the council chamber and returned to the military headquarters. His team was waiting for him, stood at attention. Jackson was there. Lisa was reviewing data. The warrior was checking weapons. All of them had fought and bled and risked everything. "What happens now?" asked. "We go home," said. "We tell the United Nations what we have accomplished. We tell Earth that humanity has a place in the galaxy. Then we come back and continue the work." The human military established new academies across galactic space. Young aliens from dozens of species came to learn how humans fought. They came to learn human military strategy. They came to learn the way of the warrior that humans had developed through thousands of years of conflict with each other and with nature. But made sure they also learned something else. They learned that war was not the goal. The goal was peace. The goal was protection. The goal was making sure that no one had to live in fear. The goal was building something better than what had come before. Months passed. The Vex Collective retreated. Smaller groups of them still fought, but the main threat was gone. The galaxy began to heal. The species that had been afraid began to rebuild. They began to restore what had been lost. Stood on the observation deck of the new Prometheus, the first great warship built by humanity for the Galactic Defense Force. It was not the largest ship. It was not the most technologically advanced, but it was the fastest. It was the most maneuverable. It was designed for the kind of warfare that had taught. Joined him on the deck. She did not say anything at first. They simply stood together looking out at the stars. "We changed things," said finally. "We did," said. "Do you think it will last?" asked. "Do you think the other species will remember what we taught them, or will they go back to their old ways?" Thought about this. He thought about what he had seen in the council. He thought about admitting he was wrong. He thought about the oldest being in the galaxy learning new ways. "Some will remember," he said. "Some will forget. That is how it always is, but enough will remember. Enough will teach their children, and those children will teach theirs. What we started here will continue long after we are gone." The stars continued to burn. The darkness of space continued to stretch in all directions. Humanity, the primitive species from the had earned a place among the greatest powers in the galaxy, not through luck, not through accident, but through courage and determination and the refusal to give up. Thought about Earth. He thought about the soldiers who had trained him. He thought about the people who had died in wars that made him strong. All of that had led to this moment. All of that had prepared him for this war. The new Prometheus began to move. It pulled away from the station and headed toward the distant stars, and watched as the station became smaller and smaller. Soon it was nothing but a point of light in the darkness. "Where are we going?" asked. "To the edge of Vex space," said. "There are still some Vex forces out there. There is still work to be done. There is still a galaxy that needs protection." "Then let us go protect it," said. The new Prometheus moved faster. The stars passed by like diamonds on black cloth. The ship carried soldiers from a dozen different species. It carried the hope of the Galactic Council. It carried the dream of peace. And it carried humans, the species that the galaxy had once called weak, the species that had proven, through blood and fire and determination, that strength came in many forms, that courage was more powerful than technology, that the will to survive could overcome any obstacle. The galaxy would never forget this war. It would never forget the humans who fought it. It would never again underestimate the children of Earth. Looked at the vast darkness of space. He had spent his entire life preparing for moments like this. He had trained. He had fought. He had learned. And now, standing on the deck of his ship, leading his people through the stars, he felt something he had not felt in a very long time. He felt peace. Not because the war was over. Wars would come again. Enemies would rise. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and it would always be dangerous. But peace came from knowing that he had done his job. He had protected his people. He had given them a future. He had changed the galaxy. Hayes, commander of the Galactic Defense Force, turned away from the observation window and walked toward the command center. There was work to be done. There was always work to be done. But for now, for this moment, he allowed himself to rest. He allowed himself to know that humanity had proven itself. The weak had become strong. The primitives had become protectors. And the Galactic Council would never again look down on the children of Earth. The end.